President, committee members, and participants. We are now live.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. Before we begin the public hearing, I'd like to make the following announcement. Due to the continuing threat to public health from COVID-19, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings and testimony are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, the Inquirer, and the Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. Mr. McDermott, will you please call the roll to take attendance, and members that are in attendance, please indicate by saying present.
Councilmember Bass.
Was that me? I'm sorry. I'm here.
Good morning. I'm present.
Oh, sorry.
Councilmember Brooks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Councilmember Driscoll.
Good morning, present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Gautier.
Good morning, Council President and colleagues and everybody watching. Present.
Good morning.
Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. Councilmember Harity.
I am present and accounted for.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council President.
Councilmember Johnson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilmember Jones.
I am present. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Councilmember Lozada.
Good morning, everyone. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Councilmember Phillips.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues, and the viewing public. Good morning. Happy to be here to serve.
Good morning.
Councilmember Squilla. Councilmember Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the listening public.
Good morning.
And Councilmember Vaughn.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you very much. We have established our quorum. This is the continued public hearing of the Committee of the Whole regarding bills number 230144, 230145, 230146, 230147, 230148, 230149, and resolution number 230162. Mr. McDermott, please read the titles of the bills and resolution.
Bill number 230144, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2024 to 2029 inclusive. Bill number 230145, an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 2024 capital budget. Bill number 230146, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2024. Bill number 230147, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Taxes by revising certain tax rates under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 230148, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-2800 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority Tax on Wages and Net Profits to provide for the continuation of the tax and to make other conforming changes, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 230149, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-2600 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Business Income and Receipts Taxes by revising certain tax rates under certain terms and conditions. Resolution number 230162, providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2024 through 2028 and incorporating revised changes with respects to fiscal year 2023, which is to be submitted by the Mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority, authorized by an ordinance of this Council, approved by the Mayor on January 3rd, 1992, by and between the City and the Authority.
Thank you. Today, we continue the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole to consider the bills read by the clerk that constitute proposed operating and capital spending measures for fiscal 2024, a capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal 2024 through fiscal 2029. This morning, we will hear testimony from the Mayor's Office of Children and Families, Parks and Recreation, and the Department of Human Services. This afternoon, we will hear from the Office of Sustainability and the Energy Authority and the Free Library. Mr. McDermott, the first person to testify is?
The first person to testify from the administration is Vanessa Garrett Harley, Deputy Mayor of the Office of Children and Families.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council President.
How are you?
Good morning, Council President Clark and members of City Council. I'm Vanessa Garrett Harley, Deputy Mayor for the City of Philadelphia's Office of Children and Families. Joining me today are my First Deputy, Jessica Shapiro, Nadine Parisi, who's the Chief Financial Officer, Christine Piven, who is the Chief of Prevention Services, and Sean Perkins, who's the Chief of Early Childhood Education. I'm pleased to provide testimony on the fiscal year 2024 operating budget for the Office of Children and Families. As Deputy Mayor for OCF, I oversee the Department of Human Services, or DHS, Parks and Recreation, and the Free Library of Philadelphia. In addition, the Office of Children and Families has its own operating programs, including PHL Pre-K, community schools, out of school time, work ready, adult education, and food insecurity or food security initiatives. Funding for our specific programs is reflected in the Department of Human Services operating budget. Our priorities are to keep children and youth safe, to support strong families, and to support schools and communities. Our fiscal year 24 budget requests reflect our continued commitment to serving all Philadelphians and supporting our most vulnerable populations. We are requesting funding to support an additional 950 free PHL pre-K seats, which will bring the total number of seats to 5,250. We have distributed these seats across more than 228 locations throughout the city. In fact, almost 1,400 of the seats will be located in priority neighborhoods, which means that the neighborhood has a higher number of children under 5 living in poverty, a higher number of early childhood risk factors, and lower numbers of publicly funded high-quality preschool seats. Not only does this program support high-quality learning and activities for 3- and 4-year-olds, it also supports many local minority, women, and disabled business owners. In fact, 63% of the providers self-reported that they were MWDBE businesses. Working in collaboration and consultation with the Department of Behavioral Health, we are requesting additional funding to support trauma initiatives for children under 6 to counteract the detrimental effects of adverse childhood experiences. In order to better support our larger community schools, particularly our high school programs, we've requested additional funding to assign 2 community school coordinators instead of the 1 that is currently at least 5 schools. This investment will help us to deepen our community and school partnerships and to ensure that we are supporting the needs, the daily needs of our students. This year, to sustain a wage of $11 per hour, we are investing additional funding to support the Work Ready program for students ages 12 to 24. We work closely with the leadership of the Philadelphia Youth Network to ensure that procedures are in place both on the city side and at PYN to avoid payment problems to both young people and to the providers that support them. Finally, although the commissioners of the Department of Human Services, Parks and Recreation, and the Director of the Free Library are all present for the hearings today and available to answer questions as needed, I want to highlight a few of their critical budget requests. Both the Free Library and Parks and Recreation are working to increase their weekend hours to offer children and adults and families opportunities for recreation and learning in safe spaces. As you will hear from their leaders, both departments are well on their way to being able to offer this full service. Parks and Rec is already operating 65 centers on Saturdays and 40 on Sundays, with plans to reach 100 centers in FY2024. The library began offering Saturday hours at 10 neighborhood locations this spring and has already served thousands of patrons. Beginning in the fall, as more staff are hired, more branches will be open on Saturdays. Finally, the Department of Human Services has requested $2.6 million in additional funding to support our work at the Philadelphia Juvenile Justice Services Center. Specifically, this additional funding would pay for additional staffing, food for the residents, a concrete good fund to support young people when they exit our center, and for security and facility management services. As we move into the summer months, Office of Children and Families has been focused on leading the charge to engage children and teens in fun and positive and enriching activities. OCF, through our Parks and Rec camps, out of school time summer programs, is funding over 14,000 opportunities for children and youth. Parks and Rec will once again host hundreds of play streets throughout the city. Additionally, with our partners at Philadelphia Works and private investors through PYN, we are working towards funding 8,000 summer jobs for youth. We've created a one-stop website for families to find activities for youth to engage in, which can be found at phila.gov/It's a Summer Thing. Additionally, at the suggestion of Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, we are also working on producing a paper document or directory, which will list programs hopefully in a more easily accessible way. Finally, before I conclude, I'm asking for your help to encourage parents and guardians to enroll their children and teens in one of the many summer programs that are offered throughout OCF. We've dropped off promotional materials at your offices. Please share them with your constituents and your networks. We are excited about making this a great, enriching summer for our city's children and youth. My staff and I are available to answer any questions. We have submitted to council more detailed testimony, but for purposes here today and time, I'll stop there and we'll answer any questions that you have. We thank you for your support and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And good morning to you.
Good morning.
Got a couple of questions. I'm going to start with one that's like kind of near and dear to our hearts. This community schools initiative, something that goes way back in terms of the conversation, actually working with the schools and the prior administration, actually before Mayor Kinney got in. We looked at a number of models across the country, particularly in Baltimore and other places, and we found out about Cincinnati. And the model of Cincinnati was like the Mercedes-Benz or the Cadillac, whatever, however you want to characterize a version of community school. And the mayor and I, newly elected mayor, myself and some other officials went out to Cincinnati. And the mayor, he likes to talk about the fact that this was like, it's semi-rural. We had to take one of those ferries. It was like a little wooden ferry. We put the cars on, and we were scared we were going to fall in the river. It was like pretty interesting, but it worked, And at the end of the day, what we saw was just really awesome. And this particular community school, they had an eyeglass division where children could go and get their eyes checked, and you actually got to pick out glass. It was like you were in a store. Across the hall, they had a dental component. Down the street, they had a mentoring room. Down the hall, there was a mentoring room where children would spend time. And this is like something that we wanted to replicate here in the city of Philadelphia. Can you tell me briefly just how we are in terms of being able to replicate that city Cincinnati model in some scale?
So we're working extremely hard to try to get to that. You're right. Cincinnati is kind of at the top of the pinnacle of community schools is one of them. And they've been in existence for quite a number of years. So we don't necessarily have what you just described, which is like to be able to go in and be able to get eyeglasses or whatever. But I do think we're doing well. And in a matter of time, we will continue to do even better. We currently have 20 community schools. Out of those 20 community schools, 5 of them are high schools in the city. I think all of the schools were appropriately selected, both because of the need in that school community and or the surrounding community, but also because of the willingness of the principals and the school community to work with us in that fashion. We right now spend approximately $8.9 million in community schools, which turns out to be somewhere around $775,000 per school. Different schools have different services that they offer, depending upon what the needs are in that particular school community. But in general, some of the stuff that we consider to be basic or standard in every school is we have general case managers that will work with families to make sure that they get appropriate referrals. We have what we call attendance case managers, because one of the cornerstones of community schools is trying to help those schools address truancy problems. We know that young people cannot learn if they're not in the building or in the classroom. So really trying to help improve the attendance at school is a key model. Some of the community schools have what's called the STEP program, which is a behavioral health component that works with them, and also the general case management. Many of the schools have food distribution programs where they help to administer food not only to the school families, but to surrounding communities. That's in the form in some schools of pantries or other stuff that families or folks that are in need can come in. Some schools have, for lack of a better word, clothing closets or places where people come in and get, whatever clothing or whatever they need. It just depends on the school and what they need. Each school has a community school coordinator that is a city employee that works directly with the principal, the staff, but also the surrounding community. And then they build relationships with other community organizations to bring in whatever the referrals are that's necessary. We also have out of school time in our community schools, and we're really intentional about trying to make sure that the out of school time services are being utilized in those schools. For the summer, we're really intentional about trying to make sure that Work Ready is in particular being utilized in the community high schools so that we target those students that we think are most in need of services. And so we just try to work with those schools and support them in any way we can. And a lot of it has to do with what feedback we get both from the parents and the community about what their needs and services are.
All right. Got a couple of quick, I'll combine the two questions and I'll turn it over to my colleagues. One, can you tell us, if any, and I would hope that the answer is a positive, an affirmative, what level of private sector contribution we're getting? Because we have limited resources as a government, and to make this thing work, we always talk about the public-private partnership. And two, a part of the goal is community participation in a community school, meaning parent participation, because we always hear, I know I do, about the parents and their role in providing support to their children outside of the home, inside of the home, outside of the home, and in their particular community. So if you can tell me one, private sector involvement, and if it's not adequate, what we can do to make sure, given all of the various institutions that we have in the city and large businesses, what we can do to assist, and to the parent participation side.
So I'm going to try to answer you, Councilman, generally, and then I'm going to ask Christine Piven, who's my Chief of Prevention and Community Schools, comes under her, to perhaps add some stuff that I won't remember or don't know immediately. There is definitely involvement from private sector. Now, whether it's at totally the level we would like it to be, I think there can always be more. In different schools and school communities is different, depending upon what businesses and other things are in that immediate community. For example, I went and visited Southwark is a K-8 school that's in South Philadelphia that has developed a number of partnerships. There is the building next door, I don't know the correct name for it, but it's the old box school that has a number of offices and other things in there. They do a lot of interplay with them. And with those, there's a restaurant in there. There's a number of things in there that they do a lot of interplay with. There are a lot of community groups and organizations that the community schools coordinators do partner with and bring in. And so they get a fair amount of donations and other things with them. The other thing that we try and do is leverage anything else that we have under the city or existing other city contracts, particularly in OCF, to be able to bring in additional services there. But I'm going to ask Christine Piven to give you some additional details around your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. This is Christine Piven, Chief of Prevention. In terms of the funding, as Vanessa said, a lot of it is leveraged in terms of in-kind investments from alternate organizations. So, for example, partnerships with St. Joe's, and we can give you a list of the various partnerships at each of the schools so you can see those investments and how we're leveraging that in-kind to really expand and deepen the partnerships and the investment in community schools. So that's one piece that we can share with you after these sessions. In addition, parent engagement is strong. One of the key pieces of the coordinator work is to build and support parent engagement. So again, we can give you information at each of the schools and what's happening with parent engagement, but that is a key role for the coordinator as well.
All right. Yeah, that would be helpful if you can give us the list of all the schools and the various partnerships. So I think that's a role that we can play in giving some support. You know, people always say they want to contribute to the welfare of the city and neighborhood, so we need to give them every opportunity to do that. The parent participation part.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman. I was just going to add, looking at some cumulative numbers, it looks like for fall of 2022, reportedly, we had over 700 partnerships between those 20 schools that were engaged with various organizations, and also over 38,000 different supplies and stuff were distributed. So that gives you some example of the magnitude of where we're hitting. Also for community schools, you may know this, in June, we're having the major community schools conference kind of from the national level. They've picked Philadelphia because they think our model is going well. And they want to showcase some of the stuff that we have here. So it will be at the convention center. Certainly we will keep you and other council officers informed. But they have been here and we have been talking, and we're also learning from them other things we can do by looking at Cincinnati and other schools too. But they feel like that we are well on our way to becoming one of the more model community schools, cities.
Okay. Thank you. And the parent participation part?
So the community schools coordinators, to my understanding, work very hard with the principals to try to enhance parent participation. And in fact, a lot of the volunteers are parents. We use a sort of volunteer model in terms of helping with everything from the food distribution to, any special activities or fairs that they may have at the school, to any enhancements. Some of the schools do things like learning or reading partnerships and all that kind of stuff. They use the parents to model. From what I understand, the parent engagement in the community schools seems to be outpacing the parent engagement in schools that are not community schools, because it's a myriad of things that we offer in different interests, that are piquing the parents' interest, and they can come at different times, because community schools, some of the activities are during the day, but there are many things that are done in the evenings and at other times when, parents might be more available or more accessible.
Right. Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. How you doing, Vanessa? Hope all
Good
is
morning,
well.
Councilman.
Thank you and your team for all the work that y'all are doing. I have a questions for Park and Rec now, but also a question regarding summer youth jobs, right? And
yes,
part of my Save Our Youth initiative that I will be advocating around for this particular budget is expanding the opportunities for young people to receive summer employment. And from the numbers that we have from last year, more than 17,000 young people applied for work-ready applications, and 4,000 young people was unable to provide the necessary documents that were needed. Another 5,000 young people didn't do a follow-up to the notices that we're giving to them. So that's about 9,000 young people who either didn't follow up with the proper ID and criteria to apply, and others, another group of individuals who didn't actually just follow up. So basically, I just want to get to what are we doing to close that gap? What would it cost to fund the full 17,000 young people if they all applied and have the proper information to act and actually also followed up? And then my question for Park and Rec as a follow-up. Hey, Catherine, always good to see you. Give a special shout out to you and your team, as well as Frank Fabian, Aparna, and the whole Francesco and the whole team over there at Parks and Rec. But also, I want to know in terms of, I'm also advocating particularly for district council members who receive ITEF funding to specifically focus on the maintenance of our parks and our recreational facilities, capital maintenance of our parks and recreational facilities, how we're doing. I believe we do need an increase as it relates to inflation. If we're going to do $40 million for rebuild, I think it's $40 million for rebuild. For the parks that aren't rebuilt, we want to still maintain and continue to build new playgrounds and build new basketball courts, and that 1.5 million just isn't getting it. And so I just want to put that on the record. But Vanessa, can you start, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman, for that question. And I also want to thank you for your interest in young people that you've always had, and your interest around this work ready, ensuring this young people have summer jobs. That question you posed, you and I have talked about it a little bit. And frankly, you brought it to my attention. As you know, I just sat in this seat a little less than a year ago. And so last summer was one of the first experiences that I had at this level with it. So what we're trying to do to make sure we can address some of the issues that you raised, which are accurate and real issues, is we now will pay for First of all, some of the barriers to young people getting the correct documents, and we know that people lose documents. Some families are transient. Some kids just, have it in their backpack and they lose it or whatever. But some of the barriers are it costs to get those documents. When we talk about the vital documents you need, your birth certificate, you have to pay when you go to get a new one, or a social security card or anything. So we're now making available what we call a support gift card, which means we will pay the fees for those young people to be able to go and get whatever those documents are that they need, so that is no longer a barrier. I know that almost 200 gift cards have been distributed already, and we're really just beginning the registration process, and folks are working with young people to try to make sure that they have all of the documents that you need. PYN, or Philadelphia Youth Network, as you know, are our intermediary that actually manage and the summer work ready process. They've already hosted about 16 different recruitment sessions, and I know about 5 more are scheduled, because one of the things is some of the young people do have difficulty filling out these applications and stuff, right? They are available online, instructions are available online, but that doesn't mean sometimes people need a different level of assistance. So we are going out our way to make sure that we host more, I don't want to call them orientation sessions, I'll say information sessions, and so that somebody is there that will physically help you. There's also a PYN hotline. That number, just for the record, is 267-502-3900. Young people or their parents can call that number and they will walk them through processes on how to do the application or answer any questions that they have, besides there being step-by-step instructions online as well. The other thing that is out there is that the providers, the actual work-ready providers, this year, we are requiring them to host at least 2 in-person sessions a month, which would result in over 100 in-person sessions between the months of April, May, and June, when you add up the number of providers. And the benefit to this is these providers are all over the city. So it makes it more convenient for kids and or their families to be able to find a provider somewhere in a geographical neighborhood that's easy for them to get to, that will do the same thing that PYN was doing, which is help them do the application. I really want every young person that we can afford to be able to get a summer job, because you and I both know that the best thing we can do is not have an idle kid and to give them some positive interaction. But summer jobs are even more important. I think back to when I worked myself through a Work Ready or similar program here in the city. It puts money in your pocket. So for some kids, it will help. For those that may, potentially be headed the wrong way, or sometimes kids do stuff, crimes of economic opportunity, because I want what another kid has. It will put some money in your pocket. For some kids, they actually use this money to help them with, necessities like school uniforms or other things. It will do all of that stuff. So we want to make sure that happens. You asked a question around what would it cost to potentially fund all 17,000.
Yes.
Yeah, now these are rough estimates, and I will have calculations and budgets done and get back to you with something in writing that's probably more accurate. But to give you an example, we are fighting very hard to get funding to fund. The goal for this summer was 8,000 summer jobs, right? That's going to be approximately 17 million. So I'm just guessing that if we multiplied that, you would be somewhere around 34 million if you were talking about 17,000. And those, like I said, are rough estimates, and I will get better estimates for you on a budget. The other thing depends upon, primarily, most of the summer jobs are in person this year, although also working with Parks and Rec around doing some hybrid stuff, a little bit of hybrid, so that we may have some young people who have mobility issues or whatever. And so that's the other thing. If we have somebody who has a mobility issue or something, that may still, we want to give them the opportunity to be able to enjoy the Work Ready program too. But again, I'll get you more accurate budget numbers, but I hope that gives you a rough idea of kind of what we're working with.
Okay, thank you. And Catherine?
Hello, Councilman. Catherine Outlevel, Commissioner of Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. I just echo everything Vanessa said. At Parks and Recreation, we are the single largest employer of teens through the Work Ready program in the city. And each year we have anywhere between 12 and 1,300 teens working with us. Councilman, I agree with you that, and Vanessa, that the application process can be burdensome. I say this as a mom whose 14-year-old daughter applied through the program last year, and so it's certainly a level of support is required. We have a system in our department as one of the largest providers to really work one-on-one with each of those 12 to 1,300 kids. So first, it's the facility supervisor who recruits the young people and therefore works with them to get their paperwork in. If that individual has an issue, then they're then bumped up to our Work Ready team, which is 3 people in the department that work one-on-one with families, with the students, with their parents, with their grandparents. There is a woman who works with us. Her name is Willicent Wise. Huge shout out to her. We call her Mickey, and she's been doing this work for decades, and she knows kids by name. She knows grandparents by name, and she will help you get whatever you need, to get onboarded for this job. So we do everything we can to support the kids. We will absolutely continue to do that. Not only is it an important opportunity for young people to have this job, it's a critical need for us at Parks and Recreation. They are the camp counselors, working underneath our recreation specialty instructors to make our summer camps happen. It would be a real challenge for us to make all of our summer camps happen for 10,000 kids every summer without those youth worker jobs. It's a win-win for us both.
But can you follow up in regards to the capital projects that aren't rebuild related? I'm advocating for an increase in the funding that's provided, particularly for district council members that have Parks and Rec agendas that don't fall in line with actual rebuild. And I know inflation goes up, but at the same time, we're still trying to, it's like the demand for new recreation centers, for new playground equipment, for new basketball, and we keep trying to catch up. I know because I've been calling on a day-to-day basis, so I'm like, we got to do something different moving forward because we're trying to keep up. So can you just give me an idea of where are we?
Yeah. So, yes, you call, Council President Clark, call. Everybody has our cell phone numbers, and appreciate you giving that shout out to our great capital team at Parks and Rec. But it is a challenge, and you are 100% right in your initial question, or comments that the rebuild initiative is extraordinary. However, it is only funding 72 sites, and of those 72 sites, not 100%, of what needs to happen at those sites. We're having to make some very difficult choices, even to keep within the budget for those sites. So we do everything we can to keep up with the maintenance of these facilities. However, they are aging facilities. We have over 500 buildings in our system at Parks and Recreation. 170 of them are rec centers, but we have buildings at playgrounds. We have 900 ball fields and courts. We have over 250 playgrounds, 150 spray grounds. We are blessed as Philadelphians with a massive system, and certainly struggle with how we can continue to manage and maintain those assets given all of the needs of our city, and the use that our system gets. Certainly have to acknowledge that additional support would be welcome.
Okay, I just wanted to put that part on the record, primarily because I know all around, not just in the city of Philadelphia, but all around the country, right? And we have to do a deeper dive on this. My young people are just restless. So what you saw on Market Street is not, germane to just the city of Philadelphia. We saw it also in Chicago, right? And all of us are on this phone, and all of us who are on this call, we are from Philadelphia, most of us are, and we grew up in neighborhoods, and those parks and recreational facilities are safe havens. Obviously, we have to work and make sure that we keep them safe. Obviously, that's a part of the equation. I'll ask those questions around in my second round. But a lot of us don't have a chance to go down to the shore, right? A lot of us stay in the city of Philadelphia, and our families enjoy these parks and rec. I go to Chew, I go to Wharton Square Park, I go to Star Garden, I go to Siga, take my children there on a regular, and daily basis. And for us, it's a safe haven, right? But I also know the maintenance and the upkeep, right? Because I get calls from, my constituents regarding how some of our courts look and, what parks need to be revitalized or what spray parks that we need to have. And then obviously it's always a challenge to make sure that we're advocating for the resources to do it to keep our young people safe. So I just want to put those two things on the record. I'll finish up on my second round. I just want to thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gaudier.
Thank you, Council President, and good morning. I have a few questions for Children and Families and Parks and Rec. First, of the 8,000 summer jobs budgeted for this fiscal year, what is the expected timeline for filling the positions?
So we started the registration process started a few weeks ago. We're trying to hit it hard now, and by May, most of the jobs, I believe the work starts into June. There may be some that starts beginning of July. So the timeline is to certainly fill them before the first day of the work actually starts, but we'd love to fill them as quickly as possible because then you would know how many providers you actually have. We have received already, from my understanding, about 4,000 applications, which is relatively early in the process. So that's great. Part of what we're trying to do, I'm trying to be intentional about getting the word out. I do think in some years, I spend a lot of time in different communities here, born and bred in the city, go to church in certain neighborhoods and all that kind of stuff, talking to young people. A lot of people, I said to them, you got a summer job, and they didn't know about it. Right.
Okay.
So that's a problem that we have to address. So one of the things we're trying to do is be very much more intentional about getting the word out. We are partnering with our other folks over at the Office of Violence Prevention and at CCIP, at PAN, and all of these places, because those folks are in the community daily going door to door. Mm-hmm. We created palm cards that we're giving them that they give out to people. And although we have a lot of stuff electronically on the website, I think we just did some blogs and other stuff about it. Not everybody, uses that as their media for getting information. So we're trying to put it out whenever we can. I've done some interviews with the media, and we try to spell that out there as well. I know that Parks and Rec is having a job fair, I believe it's this Saturday at the Dell, specifically about work ready and this information. So we're trying to, we partner with the school district, everything that we can to hopefully get this word out in all of the places where we think is needed most, to make sure that enough kids know about it and that the applications start flowing earlier even than they did last year.
Have we thought about ads on social media, like on YouTube or other social media platforms?
Yes. And so I'm lucky. I just relatively recently got a new chief of communications, Sheila Simmons. And so they are considering all of these types of outlets and advertisements as well. Yeah, absolutely. Because we know young people pretty much adhere more to their cell phone or those kind of things. So we're trying to do that. We are also working with and partnered with, and I want to thank Council President, who has agreed to have council partner with us and help sponsor. But on May 6th, we plan to have a very big, what we call a parent resource fair at the convention center, which will have a myriad of tables there, because not only will we have folks there from PYN and Work Ready and maybe some providers, but we'll be talking about various summer planning programs, and we'll have our various departments and folks there for those parents who feel like I need to talk to somebody so that I can make a decision about the best programs to put my kid in or the best way to fill out these applications or something. So that's another avenue that we're trying.
Thank you so much. And please do let all of us on council know how we can be helpful.
Absolutely.
I have some questions or a question for Parks and Rec. First, Commissioner, I'd like to thank you for the work that Parks and Rec has done to create aquatic programming for our youth. We know that when our kids have fun, safe programming to participate in during the summer or, other times when they're out of school, it decreases the likelihood that they will be involved in activities that put themselves or their communities at risk. And so that being said, can you tell me how council can be supportive to Parks and Rec in creating and expanding these kinds of programs, and what needs to be done to get every pool ready for the summer season?
Thank you for that question, council member. This is again, Catherine Ott-Level, Commissioner, Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. We are very grateful to all of the support we've been provided both by the administration as well as city council around getting our pools open. We have tried hard the last 2 summers, and I don't think there is anybody in the city who knows that we haven't been challenged by the lifeguard shortages, both the national lifeguard shortage as well as our local lifeguard shortage. That said, I am here with some good news that the Office of Human Resources helped us to initiate a hiring bonus. This year, we announced that hiring bonus at the first annual Philly Freeze, where your colleague, Councilman Curtis Jones, jumped in
I know. I'm so
in a
in
pool
awe
of water
him.
on the coldest day of the year. It was a sight to be seen. And we announced this initiative of hiring bonuses for lifeguards, and it is working. We have more lifeguards applicants. We have 5 times as many lifeguard applicants than we've had this time over the last 2 years. We have over 200 lifeguards who have applied. We have over 130 lifeguards who are already certified. That is literally 5 times as many as we have had for the past 2 seasons. So we are very grateful that the administration made that available to us. People are really taking advantage of it. There is still time. You can still get a $500 hiring bonus if you apply for the position by May 15th. So to answer your question, council member, lifeguards are the most important thing. We cannot offer aquatics programs unless we have lifeguards. We cannot open the city pools unless we have lifeguards. It is the only barrier that we have right now. We are praying and hoping that we will have all of our pools open this summer. There are a few pools that will be down because of rebuild. They are undergoing the rebuild transformation, as you know, but it is our goal to have 61 pools open this summer. That is as many as we can open, and that's our goal. A couple things that we've done. We have absolutely advertised. We have received millions of dollars in earned media because we've been promoting the lifeguard hiring. We've done paid ads for all of our summer jobs, but also lifeguards on social media on all of the channels. And we just started with TikTok. We have removed other barriers. You do not have to pay for the certification. The Office of Children and Families has covered the cost for certifications for lifeguards for 16 to 24 years old. That's huge. That was a huge barrier. It's $120 that you had to pay to get certified. This year, they also made it possible for us to cover the clearances. So your background clearances are also covered if you're under the age of 24. One more thing that we're doing that's exciting for this year is for the first time ever, for all of our summer camp participants, we are going to mandate swim lessons. So if you come in for a summer camp and you don't know how to swim, you would go to a pool, but you might not be able to swim. Now you're going to take a swim lesson for 30 minutes when you're at that pool, and that's going to help us build the pool of lifeguards in the future. Too many kids, especially kids of color in communities, don't know how to swim, and having pools closed season after season is only perpetuating that problem. So we're going to, really heavily encourage all of our summer campers to do official swim lessons.
Great. From a Philly girl who does not know how to swim, I think that is a great idea.
It is not too late. It is not too late for you.
Yeah. Okay. I love everything that you're working on. I'm counting on you, Commissioner. I have a walkthrough this Saturday with Mr. Ellis and Miss Effie to walk through 39th and Olive. They are holding my feet to the fire around this pool being open this summer. And Miss Effie is very fierce, as you know, and there's that passion in every other neighborhood.
Councilmember, we have guards for 39th and Olive. It's opening.
Yay! Awesome. Then we will have a good walkthrough this Saturday. Thank you so much. And thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Good news is always welcome. Chair recognizes Councilman Phillips.
Thank you, Council President Clark. Very excited to be meeting with you, Deputy Mayor, because the Office of Children and Families means the world to me. It's actually the primary reason why I decided to do this work, and God has blessed me to do this. So I just wanted to let you know, so I used to work at Work Ready. I was one of the Work Ready directors with Philadelphia's urban Urban Affairs Coalition years ago. And one of the things that I've seen is that there've been a number of students in my time working there, a number of students who want occupations and so forth. Summer jobs. They would like to have summer jobs. However, we're short, but then the other thing is that I was always greatly concerned about is the level of training that the students receive, as well as professional development that students receive at these particular job sites. So I would come back, I would ask students, "How was your day?" And they say, "Oh, Mr. Phillips, we just kind of sat around today." So the question is, what are we doing to make sure that our young people are having many meaningful experiences that can carry over into their careers after they graduate from high school?
So thank you for that question, Mr. Phillips. And I know how much your interest is in this work, and certainly appreciate your expertise and other information that you've given us in this area. We are trying very hard, and PYN is trying very hard to make sure that some of the providers that we are recruiting, that we are relaying that message to them, that it is important and really critical for these young people to have a meaningful work experience, or almost a meaningful internship experience, so that sometimes your summer job may be what helps you decide what you want to do later in life, right? Or where you want to be at a later time in your life or whatever. So trying to be more intentional about those that we recruit to give summer jobs. And also part of the experience is that, most of the young people will be working Monday through Thursdays. On Fridays now, there will be another part that is like a training for the young people that's not necessarily at that job or job site, but that we will be creating to do some of what you're talking about, which is get some feedback from them as to how well they think is going or not going, and also to do some sort of professional development or other kind of developmental trainings that we hope will work. So the model is kind of really around them working maybe the 4 days a week, so to speak, or for some it might be 3 days a week. And then, but on those Fridays, we will actually do those training. And we're also working on solidifying weekly training for those kids who will be working at Parks and Rec as well, to do the same type of thing, training, the professional development, getting feedback. And this isn't necessarily stuff that we did before with the intentionality, but also just around PYN also working with those employers that we are recruiting to try to help us as much as we can.
Thank you. And I also want to provide a question around Philadelphia the pre-K program. So yes. Currently there are, I think, 38,000, maybe roughly over 38,000 slots for our 4-year-old children in Philadelphia in the pre-K program, and it serves about 4,300 children. At the same time, I've heard from early childhood providers that they would like to offer PHL pre-K in their program, but we're not able to secure the slots. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the administration is addressing ways to expand the pre-K slots to 6,000 seats this year?
So I'll just tell you generally, Councilman Phillips, and then I know you saw Sean Perkins, who's our resident expert on early intervention in the pre-K, jump on the screen, and he can certainly give it to you in much more detail and thoroughness than I can. But in general, we are expanding the slots for PHL pre-K here at the city by about 950 slots this year. That will take us to a total of 5,250 slots from where we were. We're currently at around 4,300 or so, maybe a little more, but we're going to expand by 950. That will take us to that 5,250. And that's an investment, an additional investment. That expansion is costing us a little over $10 million. I'm going to have Sean sort of explain to you in more detail on what that process is, and how we do recognize that there are a number of providers that want seats, and kind of what that process looks like, and what we're doing to try to help, those providers that maybe didn't meet all of the qualifications kind of pull up so that at a level where they can meet it. So Sean, would you answer for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Garrett Harley, as well as Councilmember Phillips, about the question of providers in our early learning centers being prepared for PHL pre-K, because we know that high quality early learning is the goal here, and that leads to the most important outcomes for children long term. We run an application process every year to identify our centers that are prepared and ready to have high quality early learning, and we're We're proud to see those applications continue to increase year over year because we think it's a sign of success of the program and certainly the demand of the families who are accessing those seats. But we also know that many of these are small business owners, in particular women of color, are owning and operating these businesses who did not have all the same advantages of some of the other business owners. And we have a quality support center that works with a list of, we call them pre-qualified centers. You heard Deputy Mayor Vanessa talk a little bit more about that we're expanding into our priority neighborhoods. We run a data-driven analysis as well as a qualitative series of engagements with our families and with our providers to understand what are their needs and what are the needs of our communities to make sure we are expanding in those places that we need more seats and we need more high quality seats. So we work with those centers with our quality support center to get them on our pre-qualified list so that they're ready to go and they're improving their quality. We've seen a lot of success in that. Certainly not as much as we would want to have a perfect world, but we see incredible amounts of success. In fact, this year we saw 6 of our centers move up in its quality standards as evaluated by the state. And we have another list of about 21 sites we're working with for next year as well to be prepared for any additional allocations that this city council adopts to expand.
Thank you. And my final question is around the city's parks and rec centers. Recently in our district, Longcrest, we had a shooting that took place, and we were greatly concerned about the safety of our children. And normally the police department has a responsibility to do check-ins at rec centers regularly, and that wasn't, according to some documents I was able to review or hear from the director at the Longcrest Rec Center, that the police, there wasn't patrolling taking place in terms of signing a logbook. Now there's more logbook reviews every day basically going into that center, but because there was a shooting. But what are we doing to work closely with the Philadelphia Police Department to ensure that our rec centers are constantly monitored for safety purposes? Because that's really important that we make sure that our children that are using the rec centers, they're safe as well as our seniors. And also want to learn more about how we're increasing senior programming in all of our rec centers in the city of Philadelphia, because that's important as well.
So, Councilman, I'm going to start off and then I'll hand it off to Catherine. And I'm going to start off because I have personally been doing a lot of the interaction with the police department leadership because we are very concerned about safety around our rec centers. We want to ensure that our young people that are going there, as we're encouraging them to go, are safe, right? As well as our staff. We are very concerned about, the safety of our staff and anybody else that frequents those facilities. I have been talking to, you're right, there is a program where the police do routine patrols at the rec centers and go inside and sign the log books. Now, I will say to you that some of those patrols have been going on and you will see the cars come by or they're outside. They don't always come in and sign the log book, though. However, I have been working recently, particularly after the incident you mentioned and a few other incidents that we've recently had at outside of, let's say, some of our rec centers. Luckily, none of them have been in the actual buildings, but on adjacent sidewalks or, immediate vicinity. Working directly with First Deputy Stanford at the police department, we have asked and they have agreed and have started to increase patrols at the rec centers. So the increased patrols will be, additional times during the course of particularly of a period of time when the rec centers are open or active for police to come. They will be increasing the number of times they go in and actually sign the logbook, but just that police presence, the cars driving around more frequently or being in that area. And in some areas, it may be more than just the cars as they're working on. We're also talking about presence will be greatly increased as we move to summer, and obviously we have concerns as weather gets warmer and more, kids are out of school and there are more young people and other issues that are happening. So in these areas that there will be increased police presence around both our rec centers and the pools. In particular pool areas. When incidents occur at the rec center or whatever, obviously we call 911 like everybody has to for, police assistance. But we have also now worked out a program where we will have, in addition to our staff calling 911, there'll be a direct liaison where the staff will be calling directly to the police district and able to have direct contact so that we can make sure that the level of response and attention is there. And it also allows us to create a format for sort of our after working plan if there's some, lessons to be learned after that particular incident or something like that happened. I will be going and talking to the police captains there's a meeting that occurs, every week or every other week. Police captains, I have been invited by Deputy Stanford to come because it's a two-way street. I want to be able to be helpful to police and also tell them about some of the programming or other things that we have for young people that may help them when they encounter young people on the street that they could, maybe help with referring to or whatever. But I also, so that we can talk about our needs and making sure that they're vigilant. A lot of it is about establishing the relationships with those district captains and officers, and due to recent police promotions, there's been a lot of movement. So want to ensure that our staff, that's the other thing we'll probably be reinstituting, I think occurred a couple of years ago, where the staff at these parks and rec facilities actually met with directly with the districts. And that's still occurring in some communities, but we want to make sure that we connect those ties, for people who may be new. There also is a direct communication between the community relations officers at the police districts and the recreation center staff that we want to continue to abode. So when these incidents occur, I know Catherine talks to police, but I have become more involved and directly talk to them as well. And police are very aware. The other thing I like to point out, just so that it's on the record and just to remind people, that the managing director's office and the mayor a little while ago, right after we had a shooting outside of one of our rec centers where a couple of people got shot last summer, we put up a reward program that's like $10,000 for anybody that gives information that directly relates to the arrest or conviction of someone who did a shooting in the vicinity of what we call safe zones, which would be rec centers, schools, libraries, places where we think kids should be. I'm only reminding folks of that because the intent of putting that out there was, one, to help us get information to catch the individuals who are so callous as to do this in an area where they know the kids will be. But two, so it would hopefully be a deterrent so that people know that it's a safe zone area. We'll be monitoring them again. The other thing I would just add for safety, and I do want to thank Council President Clark and others on City Council that have been pushing this, is the program where Council is helping us with money, and Mayor Kinney as well, around the installment of additional cameras outside of parks and rec facilities. We have identified a certain number, particularly of high need ones, where the cameras are outside, and there's a direct program working with the city's IT department, but also they will be linked to the cameras that can get monitored and or feed information at the police department DIVIC, because there were many rec centers that really didn't have those kind of security cameras outside, and so that process is taking place. So I really want to thank Council for that as well.
Thank you.
Catherine, do you want to answer particularly around the senior programming that we have? I think that was the second part of the councilman's question.
This is the family's part.
Sure. No, thank you, Councilman, for your interest and your concern around Longcrest. We absolutely want to make sure that our sites are safe, and I really appreciate the Deputy Mayor, Garrett Harley, for all of her support, and of course the police for their support and making sure that we step up those patrols. We do keep a log of the logbooks, so we have our facility supervisors submit their logbook reports on a monthly basis, and then we do have those conversations with police to ensure that we maintain a level of consistency with signing the logbooks. As Vanessa said, things happen. Maybe they can't go directly into the center, but we do think it's important not just to have the check-in from the police from a safety standpoint, but also having a police officer come into your center on a day-to-day basis just builds that relationship between the officers and the staff at the center, which I think is equally important, and can foster that sense of safety and community as well. So we'll continue and as Vanessa said, to work very closely with police to ensure that we get as much support as possible. In terms of the senior programming, we have 6 senior centers that operate around the city. They are beloved institutions and so well utilized. But we have also branched out into providing some senior programming at our recreation centers as well. Not at every one of our recreation centers. The hours of our recreation centers are 1 to 9. So oftentimes senior programs want to happen in the morning. And so we do open some of our recreation centers to allow that senior programming to happen in the morning, but not at all of our recreation centers. So it's really on a as requested and as needed basis. basis. But that said, there are some programs that happen in the early afternoon and the evening for seniors. We can get you a list of those sites. And then we're always open to ideas. If there are sites in your district or any of your colleagues' districts where there is an interest in additional senior programming, we're happy to work with you on that. We have a wonderful relationship with PA Corporation for Aging. We do our annual senior strut with them, and they're just huge supporters of our senior centers. We're always looking for other ways to collaborate, especially with intergenerational, multi-generational programming with the young people. So happy to talk with you further about that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in learning more how we can fund and support expanding, hours and even activities for our seniors in some capacity. So thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I had to get my buttons straight. I remember when we went up to Trenton and we were able to talk to their administration. And one of the things that amazed me was two things. One, how far advanced we were within our recreation department and system, but how far they were able to go on the amount of money that was appropriated. And I'm not even going to say how much that was, but you remember, Mr. President. One of the things that we also looked at was their integration into government, and not just as a place where kids safely played, but where they were safe while they played, and that they were a part of the police, they were a part of the anti-violence, they were an integral part of that. And I'm beginning to hear in this budget hearing that we're moving vigorously in that regard. So my first comment, question, inquiry is that the event that happened on Market Street with the 200 young people, a staffer for the city, who will go nameless because I don't want them to be suddenly unemployed, contacted me and said that there might be a correlation between, there was a article about a group of young people that were living out of one of DHS's offices because of the lack of beds. And sometimes they come down, they get a good meal, they take a shower, and they are not required to stay. And so therefore they leave. And one of the places that they sometimes gather was Delaware Avenue. And some of the activities along Delaware Avenue weren't the best activities. And that they were also in communication with people, young people that were interested in violating curfews, having, quote, fun. And some of that activity that goes on is a result of what was the flash mob on Market Street. So my question becomes, what is the status of that arrangement within DHS's office and the children and youth process that happens there? And have we made headway on finding alternative lodging?
So Council, I was going to say, I'm going to have Commissioner Ali address at least part of that, and then I'll try to answer some of your more general questions around safety.
So thank you for that question, Councilmember Jones, and for the information, because I did not receive information that some of the young people were young people who were known to the child welfare system. And so just to give you a picture of the child care room, as we call it, the DHS building that housed the child care room operates 24 hours, 7 days a week. Our building has always been in operation 24 hours, 7 days a week, because at any given time, young people who are victims of abuse and neglect, we receive them in order to determine whether or not we can reunify them with their families, or if placement is necessary, then place them with kin. And so we do have young people who come into our child care room. The young people that come into our child care room, what we know about the young people, they are young people that have disrupted or had some instability in their placement, And there's a number of reasons for that. It could be the fact that number one, they don't even want to be in placement, right? And so they yearn in order to return home to their families. And if that's the case, we work closely with the young person as well as with our court systems and their advocates to make that happen. There are other reasons. Some of the reasons that also young people land into our child care room is the fact that the young person that we are seeing now is simply a more complex young person. This has been compounded by COVID. We had young people who were isolated, young people who have been traumatized, and they simply want an out. And so we have been working closely with our partners at DBH and CBH in order to offer those services to young people to meet their needs, but also to train our kinship caregivers and our foster parents around how to handle this more complex young person. We will never turn a young person away, from DHS. We do offer them when they come. We have showers at DHS. We have sleeping quarters at DHS. We have a state-of-the-art kitchen at DHS. So we will never turn a young person away. We also provide services on site in the child care room. We have our older youth staff who primarily work with young people from the age of 14 to 21. They are actually in our child care room engaging the young person to get a sense of what they want in terms of their plan. And most recently, one of our behavioral health providers, Meraki, also is doing evaluations on site at our virtually in our child care room. The young person is on site and they have a virtual session with Meraki in order to determine what behavioral health supports that they need. So in terms of how we are addressing this issue, we're addressing the issue a number of ways. The first is that we had to make sure that we are engaging the young person, hence why I talked about our older youth programming, so that we can get them involved in terms of what their next step is. We also talk to their family so that we can reunify them with their family or place them in kinship care. We just awarded a contract to a provider, a Second Chance Incorporated kinship care navigators, who will be working closely with some of our difficult to place young people in order to identify kin, but more importantly, offer supports. As I indicated, these young people are more complex and they simply need more. And so we want to work alongside our provider, a Second Chance Incorporated. We also increased the emergency foster care rate and the emergency kinship care rate so that we can get kinship care providers and foster care providers to accept the young people on the same day and not the next day, because we don't want any young person to sleep in our, child care room. Additionally, in FY2024, so in July 2023, we have a provider that we have identified who will be providing short-term respite up to 21 days. In addition, some behavioral health supports to the young people until we find a more appropriate placement. This is a top priority for DHS.
Commissioner Ali, I knew that was going to happen. I want you to know, and I've told Vanessa Harley this every time in every role that you've had, I could not do your job. You see our young people and families on their worst days, and I applaud the work that you guys do. My inquiry and comment was more to make sure that you were aware, and I agree that those young people are way more complicated than the young people I used to counsel at the House of Emoji. But there is a theory that they are getting that shower, getting that meal, and then going out at night and recruiting others to be a part of a less than reputable nightclub group. So I want you aware of that. And I want to make this statement that whatever we need to do to assist you with that whole operation down there, I want to do. And I want to commit to working with you to do, because those are most vulnerable. I'd rather them get a shower and a meal with you than with some predator. And so therefore, we have to make them comfortable enough to want to stay, comfortable enough to want to change some of their risky behavior. So whatever that is, so my bringing this up, because it was dumped in my lap, is to say to you that as chair of public safety, I am willing to work with you and whoever. We've been in tight quarters before at JJC, and I know you are not a stranger to dealing with tough problems. But I am worried about that flow of young person on the streets of Philadelphia, and we have to help them in spite of themselves. And that's what I had to say.
I couldn't agree with you more, Councilmember Jones, and thank you, and I will take you up on that offer.
Got it. Just real quick, and I'll put this out there and let someone else. I am encouraged by the fact of the questions of community schools, Mr. President. I'm excited that you asked that, because we meet with our with our principals once a week in Monday morning roll calls. And Commissioner Ali literally went on that call to explain the 15, 20 different programs that are offered. And there is a disconnect in communications about understanding how to utilize them. So I was happy that you said that, and want to get a list of where those schools are and how many of them are in the 4th Councilmanic District. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Bass. Here.
I am here. Good morning, Mr.
Okay. Good morning.
President. My apologies.
No problem.
So I just had a couple of questions. Good morning, Vanessa. How are you?
Good morning, Councilwoman. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. I just had a couple of questions, and actually I wanted to start with Parks and Recreation. And so I was really glad to hear about the swim lessons. And I don't know, Catherine, if am I safe to assume that some of this around the swim lessons and the buildup of a bench for future lifeguards came from our conversations from 2017? Yay! Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad to see that this is implemented. And, I was very, interested when I heard you talk about it. My ears really perked up and I said, that sounds just like our Ready to Swim program. So can you talk a little bit more about that program in detail? And I know when we had talked about it, the idea was to make sure that we had a full bench of potential lifeguards so that when our current crop of lifeguards, which are usually college students, when they go back to school, that we have, some folks who can still step in and fulfill the duty for not all of the summer, then for the rest of the summer. So we don't have to close in early August when it's still really hot outside. So can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Catherine Outlevel, Commissioner Parks and Rec. Yes, absolutely. You have been championing this initiative for years. I mean, for at least 5 years. And we started a little pilot of this last summer. In the sites where we were struggling to get lifeguards, we started to offer, we have always offered free swim lessons at all of our sites, but we started,
Yes.
and I'm using the word mandate lightly, but we just basically started incorporating them into the summer camp. All of our summer camps go to pools, right? All of our summer camp
Yes.
kids go to a pool, but
Yep.
they just go for an hour and have fun. And so we just said, you know what, for the kids that can't swim or aren't strong swimmers, for 30 minutes of that hour, we're just going to instruct them, because the lifeguards are trained instructors, right? So we basically, at those sites where we had been struggling to get guards, we piloted this program where we offered mandated swim lessons for the kids that were in those camps, right? And then, over the year just said, well, this was doable and it works, so why don't we do this for all of our camps now? Now, if a parent doesn't want their kid to learn how to swim, of course they can opt out, but but I totally agree with you that this is the only way. This is the only way that we're going to increase that pool, is if we work in those neighborhoods, get kids to see themselves as swimmers, and just to bridge that gap. It can be really daunting to think about becoming a lifeguard. It can be scary and daunting. And we got a lot of grief when we were launching our lifeguard recruitment campaign. I don't know if you saw it, but there was I'm going to say snarky article out about how you can be a lifeguard in the city and you don't have to know how to swim. And you know what? That was not true, because of course you have to know how to swim to be a lifeguard. But we have said, over and over again, and I'll reiterate it today. If you are not a strong swimmer, we will train you. We have water safety instructors that if you want to come in and learn how to swim, we will do that for you. And we now are at 5 or 6 different pools. That's another game changer for us, is that thank God schools, private schools, the Prep, Penn Charter have opened their doors to us, Friends Select, to allow us to use their pools for trainings. That has been a huge difference that this year has made. So we are offering sort of like basic swim lessons for people that want to be a lifeguard but that can't swim. We will train you up. Now, you still have to pass the screening. You still have to get certified, right? But it shouldn't be a barrier to anyone. And if we start the kids young enough, then they're going to see this as a pathway to them. You can be a youth worker at the age of 16. You can make $11 an hour. Or you can be a lifeguard and make $16 an hour. And if you apply soon enough, if you look at that hiring bonus amortized over the 7 weeks of being a lifeguard, that's an additional $4 an hour. You're looking at a $20 an hour job for a 16, 17-year-old in the summer.
Right.
I mean, that's, we have to do a better job of connecting kids to the opportunity and sort of demystifying it for them and building up their confidence. And that's what we hope to do.
Well, excellent. And I'm not sure where that snarky article was, but I thank you for clarifying that information, because sometimes people actually believe that stuff that's printed is true. And I know for a fact that, that's not always the case. But I thank you for bringing forward this program. And I'm really excited to see that we're going to have more and more swimmers, particularly in our Black and brown neighborhoods, because we know that those are the kids who don't have access to quality swim instruction and who are much more likely to drown on a regular basis. And I think that the number of I can't remember the exact percentage of, folks who drown who are African American. I think
they're
the number
3 times more likely, Councilmember.
Yeah, okay.
They're 3 times more likely to die of drowning in their lifetime than a white person. Yes.
Yes. So thank you for doing that. And I don't think that this is necessarily in your department, but I did want to talk about funds for rebuild. So now, as we know that with the cost of supplies going up, supply chain issues, and inflation issues, I just wanted to see what we are doing around the rebuild initiative and also around costs in general. I have a project in my district, Barrett Playground, which is scheduled to be rebuilt, which went from a 7 to a 10 to about a $15 million project now.
Hi, Councilmember Bass. This is good morning. This is Kira Strong, Executive Director of Rebuild. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here this morning. And thank you, Councilwoman.
So you and I have had extensive conversations, and we thank you for being really just a great partner in this and really trying to help us figure it out. But as you know, like, we have had some really serious increases in the cost of supplies to finish these recreation centers. And what we've done, it seems, is rather than the city sort of ponying up the additional monies, we say, okay, well, we're going to cut back here and cut back there. And that's just really not acceptable, especially when we promise rebuild. We promise X, and we're delivering Y, and people are expecting X. And so I'm wondering, what is the plan for that? Like how are we going to use this budget to address that?
Thank you, Councilwoman. And I do want to thank you for your advocacy. And I think it's shared. I certainly know other council members and the administration similarly share the goals to really make sure that we're supporting these really important public spaces and facilities, across the whole city. We recognize their importance, and certainly we know our partners and residents and constituents have been vocal in advocating to make sure that we meet the needs of the residents we serve. So I think there's been a lot of collective strategy and brainstorming. You've been a part of that, and we have a lot of partners in the room today that have been helpful with us around, frankly, how do we raise additional funds? How do we make sure we're bringing the appropriate assets and resources to these facilities? I would say a couple quick things, and then to Barrett specifically. One is, we've been fortunate to raise, we're nearing about $41 million in total for the program, recognizing, about 2 years ago that we were seeing these really big disparities between the hopes, dreams, and needs of the facilities and the budgets that we had. So there's been a lot of support on the local and state level to help us fill some of these gaps. We've raised about 17 million just in this past year. And our goal for Barrett specifically is to make sure, we're seeing a really wild, I know others on this call are familiar with this too, maybe even more so than we are, but we're seeing a really wild construction environment and bidding environment. We're seeing our bids come in on projects anywhere from, I'd say 10 to 15 to 45% over what our professional third-party cost estimates are. So to that end, we're trying to put in, and you've been really helpful here, safeguards to make sure that when we go to bid and we receive these bids back, that we're very nimble and flexible, both in terms of bringing more dollars to the project, but also in making sure that our construction documents have the ability, if we have to pull something back, which is not our goal, we can, but that if we're able to make sure we can do everything possible at that facility, that we have already designed it. Because our goal is to really get these facilities, at this point, online as fast as possible. So to that end, for Barrett, we're very hopeful that we're going to have the full support to be able to make sure that that full site is implemented. And I would just say, you're aware, I think the mayor did propose additional funds in this year's budget to ensure also that if we come up short for projects in this coming fiscal year, there will be some dollars to fill those gaps as we get those bids back. So I hope that's helpful.
That is helpful. Thank you very much. I know that the bell has rung, so I'll come back on my second round. Thank you.
Clerk recognizes Councilwoman Lozada. Okay, clerk recognizes Councilman Johnson for second round.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a question for Catherine as well as Karen Strong. Catherine, just had a question, and I'm going to take a page out of Council President Darrell Clark's book, who went to New York and looked at the model of public safety officers to complement what the City of Philadelphia police officers are doing here in the City of Philadelphia. Now we have public safety officers that are going to be doing a variety of different services here in the city as it relates to public safety. Is it possible to look at that type of Parks and Recreation model for our Parks and Rec system? Because again, we're having a real straight up transparent reality conversation. In a lot of the areas where we see high crime and gun violence, right, and we be building up these nice facilities and basketball courts, there is the issue of public safety. And the reality is we don't have enough manpower officers to cover just about every rec center that's in those high zip code areas. And I know we kind of work as well to try to cover as much as we can, which I do know we have been doing that. But could there possibly be a model in the future where we have Parks and Rec / civilian public safety officers? Not people carrying guns, but a lot of times just the visibility, right? It's just knowing someone's of authority is there to kind of prevent an incident from taking place. And obviously a lot of our Parks and Recreation facilities, people gather and hang out, which they're supposed to do, but sometimes that extra level of authority and presence kind of have people like, okay, let me be mindful of what I'm doing. So that's one part of my question. And then also for Kara, and I guess this dovetails into Catherine as well, I've been getting these calls. As we tear down certain buildings, like I have Myers, I have Vare, right? Do we have a plan B for where these children are going to go temporarily in the meanwhile, right? Because although they're getting a great building, which I tell them when they call, I said, that's great. Like, you want to have a brand new building. They said, but Councilman, what are we doing in the meanwhile to still stay occupied? And so have that been thought out as we go through this process? So that's a two-part question.
So, Councilman, I know you addressed the first part of your question to Catherine, but I just wanted to jump in, kind of put on the record. I think you bring up a point that we have been thinking a lot about. We kind of think alike. We have been flipping around, and I just mentioned to Catherine the other day that we may need to start thinking about whether or not we have to try to. We'd have to come up with the funding, because I'll be honest, right now I don't have the funding, but I'd have to come up with the funding to try and think about whether or not we need to do some private security in some of the Parks and Recs facilities, just as a way of supplementing the level of enforcement that police can do, just because we all know that we are all suffering with some, manpower shortages or work shortages. So that is something that we're talking about. And I, am also discussing it with Tumar, the managing director, as we're thinking about trying to be as intentional as we can and trying to keep, all of the folks that visit our facilities, in particular, the young people that visit, safe. So that's something that we are exploring in answer to your question around, is it a potential model or something? I don't know that it'll look exactly like public safety officers, but it is certainly something that we are thinking about and need to explore.
Thank you. And the plan B for our youth who won't have the opportunity to go to King Sesson. They won't have the opportunity to go to Myers because obviously brand new buildings are being built. What do our children do in the meanwhile while these buildings are being demoed and shut down?
I'm happy to take that, Councilman. This is Catherine, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. So we fortunately have already had to deal with that, as you know, with VAIR, Recreation Center, and other centers that have been closed to the public. So what we do months in advance, and working closely with the rebuild team to get a sense of the timing for a project is, months in advance, we begin to work with our staff at the site, as well as the advisory council, to begin to talk about what the alternative is going to be. And we're doing this right now for several of the sites that are closing this summer, and some in your district. So we look at all of the programs, look at the whole calendar of programs for the year, and we begin to identify alternative locations. So for example, at VAIR, that incredible gymnastics program is rehoused in another one of our rec centers. We also got them additional time at Temple. That was a huge lift because it involved moving all of that equipment, and making sure the kids had a way to get there. So, we don't just look at where the, enrolled programs go, but we also look at, opportunities for open gym. And we have a very good partnership with the school district who's, allowed us access to their facilities and our ability to permit those facilities. So we do make sure that either at nearby centers, schools, or et cetera, that 100% of the programs are rehoused, it really wouldn't be possible without access to some of the school district facilities, to be completely honest. We're also talking with other partners, as we look at potentially 4 facilities in West Philadelphia, your district included, closing over the next, say, 3 to 6 months. We're talking with some university partners as well, about gaining access to their facilities in West Philadelphia, and we'll do whatever we can to rehouse the programs.
Yeah, let me know if you get any pushback, right? Because everybody talks about this issue about gun violence and crime, and our young people, and this really is a moment in time where we all have to roll up our sleeves and participate in addressing this issue. So please don't hesitate to give me a call if any of the institutions or the partners that you want to engage and give any type of resistance or make 1,000 excuses as to why they can't help our young people. Because at the end of the day, it's all about moving the city forward, and that's going to take for everybody trying to figure out, what can I do, right? And no elaborate fees, right, to allow our young people to use their facilities. The insurance, I understand, but don't try to charge up the city of Philadelphia $1 gazillion to have our young people have an alternative temporary site. Right? I get the insurance part, but don't try to make $1 off our young people when at the end of the day, we're trying to just have a safer city for our youth. And so with that being said, thank you. It's because I have a little extra time. I want to push Kara to talk about those great diversity and inclusion numbers that Rebuild has significantly accomplished since this project has started. What is the diversity and inclusion numbers regarding Rebuild?
Thank you, Councilmember. And before I answer that, if I can, I just want to give Catherine and her team a shout out because they have been incredibly flexible and wonderful to work with around the relocation. As we all know, construction schedules can change, and they've been really fabulous in making sure kids are first and that programs land. So just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you, Councilmember, for the question, because it is really important that those programs stay running. So we're really thrilled around our participation, and knock on wood here, our goal is to keep this strong precedent going. We have a nearly 65% minority and female participation for our contracts, both construction contracts and professional services contracts. Happy to break that down if that's helpful. But I would just that minority participation is 36.5%, and the female or woman business enterprise participation is 25.2% between both our professional services and construction. So I'm really pleased.
How much of those professional services contracts and construction contracts went to particularly African American and Latino firms?
I would need to get back to you on that.
Companies.
Mm-hmm. Let me give you the breakdown. Yep, I can follow up with that.
Now, wrap up on this. The reason why I say that is because I know we're doing a lot of great work as a city. There was a recent report from the Philadelphia Economy League that showed that, particularly in the African American households, since 2010 to 2023, household incomes have been stagnant. Have only increased in the amount of $2,000, where other ethnic groups went from $15,000, $14,000, and $7,000 respectively from white, Asian, and Latino, which really begs the question. Specifically, African American households aren't increasing in terms of their income, and so when we talk about diversity and inclusion and the contracts that we're doling out and making sure that our projects are diverse and inclusive, these numbers show that we have to be even more intentional to make sure we're leveling the playing field and providing opportunities for this particular population of individuals who the numbers show roughly from 2010 to 2023 really isn't making any strides. And we do a lot of good work here in the city of Philadelphia. But those numbers, based upon that report, shows that there is a disconnect somewhere in terms of improving the quality of life and wealth, particularly of African American households. And so with you and your team, I just want to say continue to keep up the good work in this area, surpassing your initial goals. And care, as always, keep up the good work. Thank you, Vanessa. And a shout out to Kimberly Ali before I roll from South Philadelphia, DHS, commissioner who's doing a great job from the P. Peace.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Okay, there it is. Good morning, Council President, and good morning, Vanessa Garrett Harley and the team at the Office of Children and Families. I apologize if any of this is a repeat, and you can let me know if that's the case, as we are all working and going on roller skates. So I wanted to circle back to the community evening resource centers, and obviously I'll have a more specific set of questions for the Department of Human Services, who have really been our allies along with the police department in ensuring that we can get the CERC centers, for short, up and running. But I just wanted to know how you all from the Office of Children and Families are working with the Managing Director's Office, or working with DHS, and I see our commissioner there, Commissioner Ali, and I thank you for just all of your work on the CERC centers. We would have never gotten through this without you. But how you all are working around the sort of overall violence prevention strategy for the summer and utilizing the CERC centers and ensuring that they are fully utilized as a part of this community strategy.
So thank you. Good morning, first of all, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. It's not a repeat question, but we're always happy to answer your questions, even if it is a repeat. And we do want to thank you for championing these CERC centers and all of the work that you do with us, with young people, both at OCF and at DHS. So thank you for that. I will say around just the summer planning in general, and I think one of the number one priorities for the administration and city as a whole is safety. We're all concerned concerned about safety, particularly the safety of our young people this summer. And so I have convened summer planning meetings, as I call them, which are multidisciplinary meetings that have pretty much all of the different agencies across the city who have some summer programming or anything that would affect children, because what I want to make sure is that we have always done some good work, but sometimes as a city, we tend to be siloed in our work. And I want to make sure that the work aligns, everybody supports each other, and that we can utilize all of these things that we have to leverage better, outcomes or, more progressive outcomes for our young people. Now, having said that, at the table and in the summer planning meetings, besides DHS and OCF and libraries and Parks and Rec and all of our agencies, is the police department, the school district, and others, right? And so the CERCS is something that we certainly count on as a supportive mechanism, because while, one of the aspects of the CERCS is so the police have somewhere to take young people who may be out past curfew that they encounter, what the CERCS have turned in for us, and I am very happy about and excited about it, and I know you are too, it is a positive outlet in many of these communities that offers really great programming. We have really I think DHS has done a great job, and the providers of the particular CERCS has done a really great job of doing community outreach. And most of the kids that are coming into the CERCS, they come in on their own, or their parents are sending them or whatever, which is a great thing, particularly because those CERCS are open from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., some of the most critical late hours for somewhere for kids to go. We currently have the 4 CERCS, and we should very soon be making final decisions on the selection process, and we will have 2 more up and running for this summer, so that there will be, from a geographic perspective across the city, different CERCS and different services that are open. But it is an integral part, and when we talk to police, we certainly talk about how we integrate that into when they encounter young people. We certainly don't want any young person who does not have to be arrested, or there are some alternative where we can direct them in a better direction. And the CERCS will definitely play a key part in that. I think I said a little bit earlier, I'm not sure if you were on yet, that I am working closely with police leadership around summer planning, how we're handling juveniles this summer and stuff of that nature. I'll be going to talk to the police captain soon, because we want to make sure that they are aware of all the things that are available to them. And CERCS is certainly one of the things on the list that we will definitely be talking about and how we develop them. I don't know if Commissioner Ali wants to add anything, or Deputy Commissioner Gary Williams may want to add something I missed.
I do. Good morning, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, Madam Commissioner?
I'm doing well. I just wanted to give you a sense really of the numbers, because we do recognize the CERCS as being a vital part of our prevention continuum, but as well as our intervention. Prevention in the sense, as Deputy Mayor Vanessa Garrett Harley indicated, is that most of the young people who come to the CERCS come by way of their own or their family or community outreach. And so from January 2022 until March 2023, there were 742 young people who took advantage of the services at the CERCS. But that equated to 2,740 visits. What that means is that we are engaging the young people and they are coming back for services. And that is the main purpose when we talk about wanting young people to have something positive to do. So we are very happy about that. As Vanessa indicated, we have 2 more CERCS that'll be online. We anticipate that they will be online prior to the end of the school year in June. That will be located in the East Division as well as the Northeast Division of the city. And so we are looking forward to making an announcement on those providers relatively soon.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, thank you for that update, because my concern is that we are getting the word out, like across city departments regarding the CERC centers. A lot of times I've been going places now recently and people say, I didn't know anything about it. Now, we've done mailings to all the registered community organizations. We've done mailings to all the new police captains and inspectors. We've done mailings, internet, every type of advertisement you can think of, we've done that for the circ centers. So I just wanted to ensure that we're all working across department to get the word out about the circ centers. If there's any way that we can work together to figure out an advertising campaign, because back in the day when I was a teenager in the city, there used to be the chart that would be up in businesses and it would just say like, curfew real big, and then it would have the numbers. But even if we could just put, the information about the curfew, but also more so about the community evening resource centers, because now I'm hearing this narrative that I am going to reject, that is saying that young people have absolutely nothing to do. I disagree with that. I do think that we have some really good programming. Could we do more? Yes, we all can do more. But I do think that there's a level of programming available. We just have to get the word out, and we have to remove the barriers for young people to participate in the programs, which is why the CERC centers have the transportation component for the young people. So I just want to ensure that from a city perspective, that we are doing all that we can to get the word out. And even if it's, going on social media, even if it's doing radio advertisement, even if it's advertising on like podcasts and stuff that young people listening to, even if it's doing like this new OTT advertising, because they all have a streaming service and are typically not watching the television shows that we may tend to watch. I want to ensure that we are doing everything we can to get the word out. I did hear the bell. I will be respectful of the clock, but I do want to circle back around OST programming, which I think is through OCF, and then also about childcare and our childcare compensation for those employees. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Did Councilwoman Lozada, she come back yet? Not back. Okay. Councilman Thomas? Councilman Thomas, you have a question?
Good afternoon, Council President.
Yeah, Council Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to all the folks that are on board, and thank you to my colleagues for all the good questions. A lot of the questions that were asked by my colleagues were similar questions that I had. So I'm going to condense some of my remarks this afternoon so we're not as repetitive. And if there is something that I asked that's already been asked, I just ask that you charge it to my head and not my heart, and I do apologize. I thought I heard something said that spoke specifically about if we get into an interesting situation this summer. And I know that I've had a dialogue with a lot of you all about this summer, preparing for this summer, making sure that we have programs. And one of the things that I've been asking for is for some type of emergency funds to be available. Clearly, most dollars coming from government are restricted, but I'm thinking about something maybe through the mayor's fund that might give us a little more flexibility. What is it that we can do to prepare for the summer in situations where an emergency presents themselves and we have to act accordingly? Whether it's, I think it was, you mentioned providing security at rec centers as an example of that, right? What other examples are out there like that? And what funds can we set aside that can be available this summer to assure that if conflict presents themselves, we're able to respond?
So, good afternoon, Councilman. Thank you for that question. I would say there are different pots of money that is available for certain types of emergency, but as you acknowledged, many of these pots have some level of restriction on them. Now, certainly there are certain emergency funds at DHS that are utilized in a certain way around trying to prevent a young person or a family from having to come into care, whether that means us having to help with, basic needs like just buying food or some housing problems or something like that. There's also a fund for emergency, we call it relocation, that had some funds that was appropriated both by the city and by council. When we think about the violence aspect, sometimes we get information or we know that a certain young person or someone may be a target of some violence or something like that. Those are those funds that we can utilize to help that person relocate if they want, and their families. Those fundings are also available for FY23. And I know we asked for in the FY2024 budget, but of course that would start though in July, which would still be around the summer session. I know one of the increases asked around juvenile justice services at DHS was for a concrete goods fund, which would allow us to be able to buy some more of those goods or needs that some of our young people have, maybe as they're exiting the PJJSC or as they're being reintegrated back into their communities, if, for example, they have been away in detention or placement. So there are some emergency funds out there. I think it just depends on what the type of emergency is that we are looking at. So it's a little bit difficult to quantify those dollar amounts because they're in different pots, so to speak. But there are some funds, and we do try to make ourselves nimble enough to be able to address certain emergencies as they come forward.
Yeah, I mean, you and I know that in the summertime is when we tend to see a uptick in some negative activity. I've heard a lot of my colleagues talking about making sure young people have positive things to participate in the summer and making sure that that message delivers. I'm wondering, what is your advertising budget? How much money does your office plan on spending as it relates to marketing summer programming and free summer initiatives that can land directly with our young people?
Councilman, I want to give you an accurate figure, and to be honest, I don't know that a number right in front of me. I mean, I have some ideas in my head. I'm not sure they're accurate. I'll get with my chief of communications though and give you that number. I can tell you that I'm lucky that we just got one, and we are doing some increased advertising both in social media and electronically, as well as trying to do some things in person, as well as newspaper print and everything else. So I can kind of get you a list of what that advertising looks like and what the correlating budget will be.
Well, I'm going to be advocating for that. I've talked about it in all departments. We know that 1 out of every 5 jobs in the city of Philadelphia right now is vacant, and that has a lot to do with some of the issues that we're facing. And so I've been advocating for more HR dollars as it relates to hiring, but I've also been advocating for it as it relates to digital marketing. And I know one of my colleagues talked about it earlier, but I've also been consistent in my message, and I know other council members as well has been as well, that these resources need to be available on children's phone, at the kitchen table. The same way that we communicated that there was a water emergency in the city of Philadelphia is the exact same way with I could say over a longer period of time. It's the exact same way that we should be communicating the resources and the opportunities that are available for our children this summer. I think if we all can agree that the crime issues that we're facing in the city are emergency, right? And if we can also agree that we seem to see the numbers drop for every age group but our children, then I think that we should really be as proactive as possible as it relates to making sure that we're advertising and marketing every option that young people have as it relates to positive activities that they could participate in this summer. So whenever that number comes, please let me know. And my office and I will be fighting for probably more based on the information that we've been given thus far, so that we can make sure that these items and resources are readily available for our children. On the Parks and Rec side, I heard a lot of questions around issues as it relates to rebuild stuff and things of that capacity. First of all, Commissioner, I appreciate you and your team. I spend more time in your rec centers than I probably should be. But I'm specifically looking at FDR Park. I had a constituent reach out to us to talk about concerns around turf and the health hazard that building so much turf at FDR Park could create. Now, I have to be honest, Commissioner, I've advocated for spaces like Cecil B. Moore, where we know a lot of our teams use that field, which is a turf field. And I know we have other turf fields across the city. I'm not going to pretend to be a health expert, but I will ask, what do you know about health issues related to possibly building so much turf, and what are we doing about those possible problems?
Thanks for that question, Councilman, and thank you, of course, for all of your support of Parks and Rec and young people. We are proposing in the plan for FDR to build 12 performance turf fields. So that is definitely the intent. Performance turf, we feel, which is artificial turf, so just non-grass fields, is and you know this as a coach, is just increases the utility, the playability of those fields by tenfold. It is a natural grass field, for every artificial turf field, it equals 3 natural grass fields in terms of the amount of playability. And that for us is, just a real priority. Right now we have 5 artificial turf fields in our system. That's just 5. And they are incredibly oversubscribed, as you know, and heavily used. What we are committing to though is to really look into turf fields at FDR that are fields that do not contain toxic chemicals such as PFAS. And we have already begun researching with our partners who are leading this project at the Fairmount Park Conservancy, the potential vendors for those non-toxic products. So there are several companies who are producing turf products that meet those guidelines, and that's what we're looking to implement at FDR, if at all possible.
Okay, great. So Commissioner, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that we send you over some of the concerns that were sent to us. And if you can get us a response back to some of that stuff so we can make sure that folks understand that we're moving in a way that's in the best interest of the city, that would be appreciated. This is news to me. It was news to me. It was information that I wasn't aware of. And, I'm a sports person all the way through and through. But it was information that I said that I would definitely put on the record and communicate to you today. And I'll make sure that we get you much more information in depth in writing. And of course, thank you for you and your team, Suda and everybody over there, all of our rec leaders across the city who do great work. I spend so much time with folks. I don't want to start naming everybody's name. I probably should in the future. Actually, I will. But thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the entire team for all you do. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, Councilman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Council President. I seen our majority leader there, so I thought I was thanking him. Thank you, Council President.
No, that's good. I'm back. I only took 1 day off, and I didn't want to. I'm back. Thanks, Councilman. Commissioner Ott, so this whole turf field issue, and I'm always, as I try to take my role seriously as a council president, so I try not to be as biased towards my district council role as I would be if I were not the council president. So I had to look at things in a global perspective, but I got to look at the district council perspective, particularly when I have a Hetzel field that you know about. We're having this discussion and you talk about overprescribed to the point where they're looking to go to Lighthouse Field to play soccer and some other type of sports, which is a significant distance away from Hetzel Field. And I have another one on the other side of my district. And I'm always told about the costs associated with these fields. And as was referenced earlier by Councilman Johnson about this, our ITEF funding, where you literally get enough money to fully fund maybe 2 rec centers in your district at best. And our ability to get a turf field with our ITEF funding is problematic at best. And when I hear about the FDR field, I understand that, where it's located and all of that. And I guess the citywide significance, I guess. I do have to say that I'm a little concerned about getting 12 turf fields at FDR, but I can't get one at Hetzel because I don't have enough money. I know that's not you calling the shots on that, but I guess I'm just sending a signal that is going to be a real conversation prior to us concluding this budget process. It's like I can't, I just can't do it with my ITEF. So we need to How much was going into FDR total?
There's $50 million over from the city over the course of the project. I will say that we're still raising funds for the field. So right now we have funding for 5, but we don't have funding for. I mean, this is a 10-15 year plan for FDR. So we have funding, or I should say, we're still raising funds to do the initial set of 5 fields. And I totally agree with you, Council President. We have a field crisis in the city of Philadelphia. It's not a crisis that is unique to South Philadelphia. South Philadelphia feels it acutely. There is one turf regulation field in all of South Philadelphia that serves 20,000 young people between the ages of 5 and 17. There is not one council member who doesn't hear from constituents, from youth football teams, from soccer teams, from track programs, you name it, who aren't, struggling with the field crisis. We have teams, football teams, soccer teams, who are, raise money to play their games in the suburbs, in Upper Darby, in Camden, because they don't have access to high quality fields. We have leagues who look at our fields and say, they're not good enough. We can't have a regulation game here because the field is in such a state of disrepair. We spend over $750,000 annually to maintain our fields. We could spend quadruple that, and quite frankly, it still wouldn't be enough because the way that the demand of our fields, the demand is on our fields, and this is a good problem to have, right? We want youth football programs. We want more of them. We want more kids in soccer programs. We want more kids in baseball programs. But the pressure that puts on our fields is really significant in terms of the utility and the playability. If it rains, technically, you should not use a field the next day. That doesn't happen in the city of Philadelphia. We don't have the luxury of just a Pop Warner team can't just cancel a game, when they have 10 teams playing. And, and I will say the other pressure on this is, when a charter school is built, and we know how many charter schools have come up in the last 10, 15 years, they don't come with fields. So now all those charter schools are using our fields, right? Which puts more pressure on our fields and more conflict between community groups and the charter schools. We have, some of the public and Catholic schools who use our field. So there's pressure coming at us at all angles. And what artificial turf allows us to do is to increase the playability and utility of that field. You can play on that field 24/7, 365, right? And it will still be a high quality field. So understanding that we have to keep safety of young people in mind, top of mind, I do believe that there is a way to have an inventory of artificial turf fields while also maintaining safety for young people. And I think, we have to do it, and we should be doing it in every neighborhood of the city. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So you've made my case. We need to put more money in artificial fields. I'm getting the commissioner to agree with our request for additional funding. So
well, I would say I support it. I support it.
All right. No, I'm just saying, no, you're right, though. It's important. We can't encourage and request and require to some degree that young people get involved in positive activity, and then we limit it because of the inability to put the appropriate resources on the table. That have overprescribed fields like you say, is a great thing. But I don't know. Like we said, sometimes money can't be the issue, right? You just got to spend the money, because the downside is much more challenging than the upside of spending more money on recreational activities. So I think we'll have a little more conversation during the course of the next 2 weeks before we conclude this budget process. Thank you, Commissioner. I believe Councilman Jones, you're on your next round. Do I have that right? Yeah, Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we drill down from the macro down to the micro, meaning what's going on in my district, as we deal with rebuild, and I know that's not directly attributable to you, but I was pleased to know that Shepherd Recreation Center wasn't going to be shut down for the summer, that we were going to delay renovations to October in order to let kids enjoy the pool at Shepherd and some of the other amenities at the rec center. What I would like to know is, what is the alternative space plan when we do begin renovations and construction? And I understand the Daroff School was being considered for certain activities. Do you have any specifics about the types of activities, the notification that will be given to young people to say, hey, this door is closed, but the other door across the street is open? And keep in mind, that is the same rec center where we had a shootout. There were over 100 shells found on the ground. Fortunately, no one was hit, and the police of the 19th district valiantly chased that car down and made arrests. So in light of that space being critical in the fight for safe places to play, what is the plan for that alternative site during construction phase?
Yeah, thanks, Council Member. Catherine Ott-Level, Parks and Rec Commissioner. Yes, that is the plan right now. We are very grateful to the school district because they recognize the need and they are working with us to make Daroff available to us. Daroff would be an ideal space. There is a gym there. It's a great sized gym. We have classroom space. So we could effectively rehouse all of our programs from Shepherd over to Daroff. And it's just works out incredibly well that Daroff is not, being used right now. So it's available for us, and we're working out those details in that agreement with the school district literally as I speak. And that is, again, as I mentioned before, that's our plan for all of the rebuild sites is, how do we make sure 100% of that programming is available nearby, and make sure that all of the, program partners who are helping us with program or working on program at that center are aware of that, involved in those conversations. So we don't have it signed on the dotted line yet, but we're really encouraged by the conversations we're having with the school district and hopeful that will be our solution.
So as you fine tune what programming fits within the school and its building facilities, can you make that kind of synopsis of what is available so that we can put that out to the community to say, yeah, there's good news about activities at the school, and even better news that we're going to spend money to open up a modernized facility. But that communication needs to be one where parents and young people and seniors kind of know.
Of course, absolutely. We'll work with your office on that, Council Member. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up, we have Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you very, very much. I wanted to circle back to just some questions I had regarding PHL pre-K. And I noted and saw in your testimony that the expansion of PHL pre-K will be by about 950 seats to over 5,200 spots. And I just want to be very clear. We love PHL pre-K. Think it's a great program. Just wonderful, wonderful program. Relative to this 950 seat expansion, will you expand to additional site locations, or are you just expanding within your existing footprint?
So thank you for that question. We will be expanding to additional site locations. I have, as you see, Sean has just popped on the screen, and he's our Director of Early Childhood Intervention. I'm going to ask Sean to give you the more detailed explanation to your question. Sean.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson. The answer to your question is both. We work with our centers that we have been working with. In particular, I could probably call out 20 of them that we have been working with over the year to expand at those sites, but we'll be adding an additional 52 sites across our city. In every single council district, we'll see increases in both seats and in site locations.
So to your point, I'm very familiar with the program, and give a special shout out to Methodist Services, which I think is under the umbrella of Educare. But as far as the pay for the PHL pre-K teachers, would you say that their salary is competitive sort of with the private market? And how are we looking at helping those workers to reskill, upskill so that they could be able to move into different positions of leadership and responsibility in that area?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the salary and the pay, which I also want to say, also just the general respect that are afforded to our teachers, could always be improved, and the values that they are the cornerstones of our future, right? They are developing our future leaders and our youngest generations. That the pay, I'd say, is competitive with private scale. However, that depends on a lot of things like the socioeconomic status of that geography or that location. So relative to where the location is, I'd say it is competitive. It should be better. I will advocate, and I would say anybody who is in this field would advocate for it to always be better. Proud of this city for increasing its rate for reimbursement for this program. We are now at $10,000 a seat. We were at $8,750 just a year and a half ago. That's incredible. More can and should be done. I also want to make sure I touch base on your question about advancement, career advancement. We have, as I mentioned earlier, that we have a quality support center that works with our teachers to ensure that their classroom experiences for the families as well as for the teachers themselves are improving. And the state or the Commonwealth has designated a professional development organization in Philadelphia, and we work in collaboration with them. They do exactly what you mentioned. They ensure that the career development of the teacher is improving, that some of our teachers who may not have a bachelor's degree, for example, are working towards those and taking advantage of the teach scholarships that we have available.
Right. So what I really wanted to drill down on, because I've been just reading a few things and anecdotally just speaking to people on this issue, do we know what the average pay is for the teachers who are teaching in the PHL pre-K program? And if so, what is it?
Yeah, I'd want to make sure I get that exact number for you so I can provide it to you, but I can tell you what the floor is. This council passed the minimum living wage requirement, of which all of our programs are required to adhere to, and that is the work that we do. That floor is not enough, $15 an hour, but that is in accordance with the living wage requirement that this council did adopt. I would say the average salary is certainly above that, but I'd want to double check to make sure I get you accurate information.
Okay. So if you could just circle back to us on that, because I will register the concern that I am concerned about pay for childcare workers in the city. As we know, in a number of different industries, it has been very, very hard to retain good people, and there's been a lot of turnover, particularly since COVID. And I can tell you that from just firsthand experience. I don't need a report or anything to tell me that, because I've experienced it personally. We have a lot of little people in my family. So I just wanted to know if you could circle back to us on average pay for the workers, but if you could give us a detailed report for all the places and all the sites that PHL Pre-K funds, how much do the workers get paid at each one of those sites? Because I think we have to make sure it's parity in that system as well if we are funding this program.
Councilmember, we'll do our best. I also want to just make sure I add that it is complicated, that they don't just receive their funding from just the city, that there are multiple funding streams for childcare and preschool. So it's complicated, it's a bit messy, but we will absolutely do our best to provide you with the information you're requesting.
Okay, and then I heard the bell, but I just want to register for Office of Children and Families is the issue around childcare and the ability to find good quality, affordable childcare for families. And in addition to the families we know who may qualify for the subsidy for childcare purposes from the state, but there are a number of families in Philadelphia who are also struggling to pay childcare because they may not qualify for the state subsidy, and because of the rates the providers charge because of the subsidy, you're literally paying double, triple, quadruple the amount of, what some people receive just for the subsidy. And so I just wanted to know how you all are thinking about providing and working with these providers, because many of them not only do PHL pre-K, but they do childcare as well. How are you working with these folks to ensure that we have a process to allow families to have affordable childcare and quality childcare It is very difficult to find. I mean, just have to be honest. Even when I was a staffer working in city council, my mom fell and broke her hip. So it was no one to watch my daughter. I had to bring my baby in for a couple months until I could find a place for her to go. But not everybody has that flexibility. So what are we doing to help people? And also, I just want to mention this. Are you all working with, or have you ever worked with the courts and FJD? Because there is a line item that they receive funding for the establishment of childcare for people who are utilizing city facilities. For instance, if someone's going to do business at the municipal services building and they need a spot to house a child, or if they have jury duty, there is a budget for that. Have you all ever worked with them to determine how we could have childcare within the quadplex in city government? And I know that years back, about 4 or 5 years ago, there was an agreement in a budget process for my predecessor, Blondell Reynolds Brown, to have a study done around the feasibility of having the childcare facility at the quadplex. And for whatever reason, upon further investigation, the money was never transferred in order for the study to be completed. But I will be circling back to that issue because I think it's exceedingly important. But I just want to know how you all are thinking about affordable quality childcare.
I think, Councilwoman, you bring up some real issues. We do know that affordable childcare is a huge problem for many families. The PHL pre-K was the first step, and some would say a drop in the bucket, because you also have a significant number of kids that are not 3 or 4 years old and therefore wouldn't qualify, but that families need help with. I'll be honest with you, this is something I'm really going to have to look into, and we'll have to do more exploration. We have not worked with First Judicial District specifically around child care facility in the quadplex. The only thing I could say to you is that, we work pretty well with family court, and there is some, child care provisions or somewhat within that structure for families that are going into the family court building, or for, sort of certain types of supervised visitation that may occur in family court, but that's not necessarily available in the way that I think you're talking about, which any lay person coming downtown to do business, right? That is not part of a system, or not, having to go within that. But it is definitely something that I can explore and look into. I think I remember a little bit about that feasibility study that you're talking about, but it's been so many years ago. I'm not sure what happened to it or where it went, but it's something that we certainly can talk about, and I'll be happy to work with your office as we think about how can we be sort of more proactive in this space. It's a difficult one. And I think you also brought up an important issue, the pay that not only pre-K teachers, but child care professionals, the assistant teachers and everything else get is difficult. There is real workforce shortages in those areas that we're cognizant of, and trying to, be as instrumental as we can in helping to promote some stuff in that arena too. But it is very, very difficult because unfortunately they're some of our most important members of society, but they certainly don't get paid that way. And we recognize that. I think you're muted, Councilwoman.
I apologize. Thank you very much. I will circle back with you all directly on that issue, but I do think also that it would be advantageous even to our city workers who are working down in the quadplex as well. So thank you, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Council Lady. I don't think anybody else is teed up for questions. So Commissioner Ali, Commissioner Ott, and Deputy Garrett Hartley, I know that we had scheduled testimony by all of you individually, but we have been all over the place in our questioning. So if there is anything that you think you may gain by giving your summarized testimony, you can do so, or would you prefer to quit while you're ahead? And,
absolutely, Councilman, Council President, absolutely. We know how to take cues. But in all seriousness, both Commissioner Ali and Commissioner Lavelle have submitted written testimony that certainly has details on any other areas that we are seeking funding. But I do think you and council have done a good job of covering questions for all of those departments this morning, and I'm not sure what more benefit it would be for individual testimony from the departments.
Okay, so it appears that Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson has some additional questions. Excuse me. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Yes, thank you so much, Council President. I'm going to start with Parks and Recreation. First, thank you so much, Commissioner Ott-Level, for your work and for the work of your office, giving a special shout out to SUDA and to all the professionals in PPR who have been working with us. It's too many to name, but particularly the tree professionals who have just been excellent. I mean, we've gotten so many calls over the last year, and just everybody at Parks and Rec. I don't want to forget anybody because you all really are important, and I certainly appreciate each and every one of you. Also have to mention the issue that we're working on relative to helping some of the groups over the summer. So I want to thank you with that as well. But I wanted to circle back too, and say thank you for, I don't know what that event was on Saturday because a busy working mom, but I know my son was there and he was excited to be there with you all for what the announcement was. I think my husband took him to his football practice and he happened upon the press conference with PPR. So, and with my colleague, Councilmember Thomas. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. But at any rate, I wanted to talk about the tree bill and providing an update on the implementation of our tree bill and how you all have spent or are spending the initial sort of $1.8 million that we allocated last year for the tree plan implementation, and then what resources you all will be requesting this year, sort of moving the program forward. And then I'll circle back after that just to ask about sort of implementation of the tree plan. Because of that announcement from the Biden administration where they said they're going to put $1 billion in funding trees and urban heat island mitigation. And you know how much I care deeply about that issue. So I just wanted to get the sort of full update on the tree bill, the tree plan, the urban ag plan, and everything regarding trees at PPR. And then I'll go from there.
Well, Councilmember, we can't thank you enough for your support of all those great plans, environmentally focused plans. And it was wonderful to see your son, David, at, I did not know he was your son, and I texted you that. I sat there the whole event, our FDR football day, and was this little boy, 6 years old, was front and center, so well behaved, so adorable, so on point. I turned and to my colleague and said, this little guy is going to be mayor someday. You just watch him. He was amazing. So did not realize he was your son till later, but you've got a charmer there, and he's ready. But yeah, thank you so much for your support. We are so excited about the Philly Tree Plan, which, as you know, is a 10-year plan to basically restore, protect, and grow the urban forest throughout Philadelphia. And we were so grateful to the administration for giving us funding this year to begin implementing that plan, close to $1.8 million. And that is going to go to the following areas. Number one, to create a city forester position and their support team. This is the first ever position of city forester that will be introduced into the administration and the city. It will reside in Parks and Recreation, but it will have, it will liaise with city agencies throughout the city. Everyone from health to sustainability to licenses and inspection, and we'll have a support team that really enables us to be as collaborative as possible. Really think about it as a one-stop shop for trees. Right now, it can be quite mystifying for a constituent to figure out and to navigate that world, as well as for developers and people. They have to go to a bunch of different agencies. So this is the idea about really centralizing and modernizing that office. The second area that funding will go to will be to increase our street tree maintenance in those priority areas. So as you know, in advance of the Philly Tree Plan, we did significant amount of scientific and environmental studies to determine where the areas of lowest tree canopy are. And sad to say, those areas of lowest tree canopy are also our poorest and most underserved neighborhoods and the neighborhoods with the highest heat vulnerability. And so we will be doubling down our efforts to provide street tree maintenance and plantings in those priority areas. We will also increase our capacity as a department to restore our natural lands. So often, especially you and your colleagues in city council, receive outreach from constituents around street trees. Street trees are incredibly important, but so are the trees in our natural lands. And too often they go unnoticed and therefore under-resourced. And so we'll be putting a significant amount of funding into key projects to help to manage and restore those natural land areas. We will also have work in tandem with communities. The Philly Tree Plan was probably one of the most robust engagement processes in terms of community that we've ever been involved with. And we have significant projects that the community has requested in some of those priority areas. So we will be working to implement those projects. We will also, a big chunk of the money is going to improve our communication and customer service around tree-related inquiries. So of course we have 311, but we want to increase additional support and not just be reactive, but really move towards being proactive in terms of our outreach to constituents around tree issues. So not just wait for people to call us and say, this tree is about to fall down, outside of my house, but really to be as proactive as possible and to engage people, not just in the problems around trees, but in the benefits of trees. So we are hiring these positions. This is a lot of staffing for us. And as you know, it has been challenging, to move through the hiring process. But we are hiring those positions at a clip. We look forward to being able to have all of those positions on board over the next few months. And then we also received funding, council member, in the mid-year transfer to address the backlog in trees, which in tree removals, which is a huge deal for us at Parks and Rec. We have had a significant and historic backlog in our tree removals, and the administration graciously gave us $1 million to be able to chip away significantly at that backlog. We will be able to remove almost all of the street trees in our backlog using that $1 million. Not all of the stumps, and mind you, it's just a snapshot in time because every minute of every day a tree is dying. So we will be able to get a huge portion of those trees removed using that funding, and it's really going to, again, sort of create a new baseline for us to begin moving forward and advancing the tree plan implementation. The Philly Tree Plan has a robust and significant, dollar amount that we're going to need consistently over the next 20 to 30 years in city government to really meet our goals of that tree plan. So we are, excited, but also cautious that, we need to continue to see a high level of support for the implementation of that plan moving forward. You mentioned the federal money. We are very excited about this federal grant program, and we have brought together our partners at PHS as well as the Fairmont Park Conservancy. As recently as 2 days ago, we had a meeting in my office to talk about our combined application for that funding. We hope to bring together partners, community grassroots partners, as well as those nonprofits that really lead this tree work to put together a collaborative application for $50 million. And that would be, the timing of this is perfect. The idea that we just completed a tree plan for the first time ever, and that this federal opportunity specifically for trees, and if you look at that RFP that the USDA put out, every single criteria is that they want is already in our tree plan. So we are poised to be hopefully a great recipient for that grant.
No, and that's why I thought it was important to sort of give the background and to talk about the work that has already been done. But I wanted to know how you all, and you said PHS, but how you all are thinking about pulling together that application. Who will the partners be on the application, and to make sure that we are going full steam ahead for that opportunity, because I think this is the way for us to fully fund the work that we are seeking to accomplish. And you all know that I tell you this all the time. The engagement that happened through the tree plan engagement was some of the best community engagement I've ever seen from any department in government relative to incorporating the community in a planning process. So I thought it was just stellar. But I just want to make sure that we have all the partners and those in place who we will need to utilize in order to best put forth the best application from the city of Philadelphia to the federal government.
Yes, thank you, council member. We are actually have a meeting on the 21st with a dozen or so different partners involved in that application, and we will keep you posted on the progress. Just again, I think the stars are aligning around trees in the city and the region. So, we will do whatever we can to make sure we catch those stars as they fall upon us.
Right. It's finally our tree time. Really quickly, so I didn't hear the bell. So really quickly, I just wanted to mention this because I've been stopped on the street. I was stopped at an event last week by two folks in another community group, but they have stopped me about and have reached out to me and have sought meetings with my office regarding the I hear the bell, but I just want to get this on the record and then we can circle back on round two. But regarding significant concerns with flooding and the wetlands with the FDR Park project. And I know some of the groups that participate even in the Environmental Civilian Advisory Committee have asked about it. So I just wanted to get that on the record and just sort of get a response. But I heard the bell. I'll circle back on the next round. But I have been stopped even as late as this week about this issue.
Did you want me to respond now, or is the bell mean I have to wait?
I heard the bell, so I'll thank you,
Okay,
Council President.
okay.
We'll come back on the next round. Thank you.
Councilwoman, yeah, I'm not sure anybody else is teed up. You?
Oh.
Yeah,
I can answer then.
well, yeah.
No?
Yeah, because
Okay.
we had, I think, we had started, and you got on a little late, because we had basically did a round robin, all of the various both commissioners and the deputy, as opposed to going one by one. So, but go ahead, just finish up with your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. Council member, thank you for that that comment about FDR. We know that there has been outreach done by some activists around concerns around FDR, and we continue to meet with those individuals to work with them and talk with them about the plan for FDR. We are happy to meet with your office individually and go through with you the plan itself, as well as the very, again, similarly to the tree plan, robust community engagement that has been done around this plan over the last 5 years. It is one of the most environmentally conscious plans that has plans for a public space that has ever been done in the city of Philadelphia. We have incredible environmentalists, landscape architects working on this plan. We did a completely separate hydrology study funded by the William Penn Foundation to ensure that us, as well as our partners at the airport, which are doing a major wetland restoration project there, are working within all of the appropriate environmental guidelines.
Commissioner, I apologize for interrupting you. I just want you to know I asked the airport about their project as well, because I know it goes into the Tenneco Township portion of the airport property. So I want you to know I did ask them this yesterday, but I wanted to make sure that I followed up with you all today, because like I said, I was stopped at an event even last week about this issue. And I know that you all do great community engagement because I saw it play out with the tree plan. I just want to make sure we do that this particular time, and that the community feels that they are being heard and have the opportunity to provide feedback as a part of this process. But also what I asked them to do was to send me a list of questions that I could then send to your office that we can get written responses to, so that they feel as though they have adequate information on all the questions that they had, because I'll be honest, I couldn't answer the questions. I did not know the answers, and I didn't want to give them incorrect information. So I just, ask that if we're able to transmit those questions for response for the group that's, I don't even remember the name of the group. I have to get it from my staff. But they stopped me at an event, and I want to make sure that we are being responsive to them, that they feel as though they are engaged and involved in this process, and that their voices can be heard in whatever meetings are had or whatever, opportunities to provide engagement are had, and that the feedback is incorporated in whatever the plans will be. Okay. And I haven't met with you all about this individually, so I really don't know. And I look forward to doing that meeting, but I just want to make sure from a community perspective that we're being responsive to people and, registering their concerns.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, council member. We've received those questions and we'll get those answers back to you by Friday at the latest. And then we'll also schedule a briefing with your office and your staff. Thank you.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
You got it.
Council President, you are on mute.
was having a good time talking. I think we're concluded the testimony and the questions for these members. I want to thank all very much. As always, be prepared for callbacks. We will take a recess until 2 o'clock, which time we'll come back for our afternoon testimony with the Energy Authority and our Office of Sustainability.
Okay. Thanks,
Do you
CP. I had
do-
questions for DHS, but I'll submit them for the record, okay?
Oh, okay. Cool.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
Councilwoman. Thank you.
Thank you.